Right, so welcome to another video from Flash Jazz Cat. Now this is the Atari 800XL, the NTSC 800XL that was previously featured in the I agreed to build another Rapidus Atari, or let's install $800 of upgrades in an Atari 800XL video, which was surprisingly well received actually for a video that was so long. It was about an hour and 25 minutes. Hopefully this one won't be quite that long, but it's very hard to say with this particular computer. But in any case, we've got a few unresolved issues from the previous video, so we're going to work on this machine and see if we can get it finished. So one exciting thing we do have on the desk today is a box from Lotharek in Poland. This was sent not that long ago, I think the back end of last week. It was actually accidentally sent to my old address, but fortunately I've got I paid the Royal Mail to redirect mail from the old address to the new address for 6 months, and I had a look back and that actually started in September last year. Quite a long time before we moved in actually. So I was a little bit optimistic about how long it would take. So the mail redirection I think comes to an end at the beginning of March. So fortunately Lotharek's package was redirected, so it's actually reached me without getting completely lost, which is good. So I think the main reason he sent this out was to get a newer AKI board in my hands. This is the old one, of course, in the previous video about this computer. If you haven't already seen it, go and watch it. Because that describes the firmware hassles we had with this device. Well, at the time of recording, I'm still waiting for a version of the corrected firmware for this board, which restores the missing keys and works on NTSC machines. We're going to have a look in the box here, see what Lotharek sent in, and there's something quite heavy in here. Wow! Oh, brilliant! So he did give an indication of what was actually in the box, but I must have misread or misunderstood what he was saying. I thought he'd sent me a soldering iron that he didn't need anymore, which I probably wouldn't need anyway, because I've got one. Several, in fact. But no, I had asked him about solder previously, because I always buy this stuff here. Don't ask me why I ended up starting to buy this stuff, but I do like it. And this particular one I used to buy from Poland, imported from Poland, and it's 60/40 essentially, but it's got 2% copper, and I really like that, but it's 0.7 mil as well, but I think the copper is primarily for tip longevity, so they won't export this from Poland now. There's some, probably since something to do with Brexit gets blamed for everything, of course. But they won't actually, the place I used to import this from, they won't sell it, they won't export it to the UK anymore. And the price, if you buy it on eBay or somewhere in the UK or anywhere, it's pretty expensive. This was a 250 gram reel. This would generally last me about a year. I think this is the second or third reel I've had. So obviously it's starting to deplete. So I was thinking about getting some more, and I mean this reel, even without the copper additive, on say eBay, so just regular Sinel 60/40 is about 30 quid. But I was talking to Lotharek, and what he's done here is he mustn't use this stuff anymore, and this is regular Sinel 60/40, and it's a kilo. Well, the box was so heavy, so he's given me this, so I'm very, very, very grateful to Lotharek for that. That's really going to save me a packet, so that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's lightly used probably, but it's the same gauge, and it's that's probably last me about 4 or 5 years, I would imagine. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. What else have we got in here? I think the only other thing is this white box, so we'll take the white box out. Okay, so let's have a look. See what we've got in here. I can see straight away we've got two of the new generation of AKI boards there. Very nice. So firmware version 1.0. Very good. This is just these longer legs on this board are just shipping protection, presumably. So very good, very good. So what else have we got? Oh, I recognise this one as the OS switcher. That's another new product, a sort of cheap product. And this uses I think it's a long reset press or something. It allows you to switch between 2 operating systems. And it's probably software flashable. I'm not too sure. It might not be. I don't know. I think you get the QMEG operating system and the regular XLXE operating system. So you can just put that in place of the operating system ROM and switch between the two. I think that pad there connects to the reset line on the machine, and if reset gets pressed in a certain fashion, at power up I think, so it'll get power and it'll tell when the reset key gets depressed following a power up or during a power up, and that'll switch between the two. Pretty clever. Another O2 fixer. This is O2 fixer 1.1. What was the other revision that I had before in the machine? Same revision, same board. But I'll get onto that later with reference to the 800XL. Now this here is the new S-Drive Nano that Lotharek's selling. As I'll flash the page up on the screen. You're probably familiar with S-Drive. If you're not, you can Google it. There's an absolute profusion of variations. This is using a micro SD card, no screen. There was one a while ago that had a touch screen. Was it S-Drive Max, or I forget. I've got one somewhere. I mean, I remember the days of SIO to SD and stuff. I used to put the SIO to SD boards with the LCD screen. I used to put them into old XM301 modem cases about 15 years ago. So it's not the first SD card serial IO based game loader by any stretch of the imagination. There was another one, I think the previous S-Drive Nano I received, which to be honest I didn't do much with. It was like a flat 3D printed package about so big, and that plugged into the back of the SIO port. But obviously the Lotharek's obviously got a supply of injection molded SIO connectors, and so he wants to use them. So that's a cool device. That presumably that uses the original loader and interface and everything like that. But yeah, well, you put all your games on the SD card. That's all you need really to run games, I guess. This here, I think this is obviously it's an audio interface. I'll have a look on his website and I'll flash that up on the screen as well. It's for sound output. I'm not going to review these products or start testing them out here. This video is primarily about the NTSC 800XL with Rapidus. So anyway, I'm going to keep one of these AKI boards out of the box. I'll put the rest of the stuff back in the box, and hopefully we will see a working AKI keyboard interface in this gentleman's computer. Can't wait. When PCBWay first approached me with a sponsorship deal, I felt pretty special. But then I noticed that they'll sponsor anybody with 200 subscribers and a potato. But this just serves to demonstrate PCBWay's generosity and their support for smaller channels like this one. And PCBWay are there to support you as well. They offer an instant quote system, a PCB assembly service, CNC machining, 3D printing, you name it. So if you need a prototype PCB or you have any other PCB manufacturing needs and you want to feel special, pop down to PCBWay today. But anyway, I left the end of that video at a bit of a cliffhanger. We'd had lots of problems with the AKI board, which is a USB keyboard adapter. And we also, since we had Rapidus in the machine, I'd gone ahead as per recommendations from the vendor and installed the SRAM board and the O2 Fixer board, which the vendor asserts are highly advisable, if not absolutely necessary, for proper operation of a machine with Rapidus, Ultimate 1MB, VBXE, and SIDE3. So I went along with that. I was quite reluctant to do another Rapidus machine anyway. But new things had happened, new things had come along, O2 Fixer, SRAM, etc, etc. So I went ahead, and now normally what I would do is just go with my usual build strategy, which is to keep it as simple as possible. But in this case, I went ahead and I installed these boards as part of the initial build. And if you've watched that video, you'll see that the machine more or less booted up straight away. Needed a few tweaks here and there. I ended up swapping the CPU. One thing and another to get the thing to work with the Rapidus board in. I'm not talking about the AKI at the moment because that's a separate issue to general stability of the machine. So discounting the AKI board for the moment, I eventually got to the point where I decided to remove the O2 fixer because it was actually, it appeared to be making things worse. And the more integrally I hooked up the O2 fixer in this machine, for example running the Ultimate 1 megabyte off the dedicated O2 signal, things actually seemed to get worse somehow. So I took the O2 fixer out, left the SRAM board in, and then we sort of battled on, and things seemed to be going okay on that front until such time as I introduced the SIDE3 cartridge. SIDE 3.1 cartridge belonged to the customer, or it will when he's paid, when the machine's done, if it's ever done. But we hit problems with that because it wouldn't work. It was stuck on a green light, and the system wouldn't boot with the cartridge in. So that's where we were with that. There was a bit of a cliffhanger with the AKI firmware as well, but I'll get to that later. So anyway, there was a comment on the video from somebody who'd had a very similar system. I can't remember the specifics of it as I'm talking now, but I'll flash it up on the screen and you can see for yourself. And he said that he had all sorts of stability issues as well on a system. I don't know if it had O2 fixer offhand, but it certainly had the SRAM board. And what he ended up doing was taking the SRAM board out of the machine, going back to the original DRAMs, and that improved things, and the machine started to work. Now, this made me think of some foreshadowing I had done at the beginning of the video about the SRAM board, because I don't just willy-nilly put these things in machines unless it's absolutely necessary. I won't, for example, deliberately remove working DRAMs and replace them with an SRAM board just on the proviso that it'll improve the stability of the machine. So anyway, I've taken this thing out. There's one connection to VBXE, to the IRQ line, that I'm going to have to solder up to the board. I mustn't forget to do that, although the VBXE will work without that IRQ connected for the moment. So that's out now. The AKI board is out of the machine at the moment. The O2 fixer is out.
Enough of what's out. What's in?
And when we last left this machine, the last time I had it open, I had put the original CPU back in it, which is a Cinetech, and I was doing that in an effort to get the SIDE3 working, and I don't think it was successful. But so anyway, I've taken the SRAM out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the lid back on the machine, and let's see if this has improved the situation or not. So I haven't seen this customer SIDE3 actually start up yet. I'll put a card in, my card. Let's see what happens. Well, it's starting up. Well, I've got a red flash there. That's possibly encouraging. This is definitely different to how we were before. Rapidus is, well, it's definitely enabled, but it's in classic mode. We can tell that by the fact that we've still got the traditional 2-column margin, right? So if we go into the Ultimate setup menu, so that's looking okay. Unwelcome clock resets were another problem I used to see with Rapidus and Ultimate quite a lot. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Right, so let's see if we can start the SIDE3 loader up. And it's, wow, that seems to be working. So that's quite surprising. Well, I say it's surprising in a way. Well, for the reasons I've just explained to you, really, I'm not that surprised that it works without the SRAM board, and certainly without the O2 fixer. But remember, we have got 74 F08 in the machine. But something that strikes me about this straight away, actually, this loader, it's not the most recent one. Which one are we actually using here? Bloody hell! 0.47, loader 0.47. 2021, it's 2024 now. But thinking about it, there's a very good reason why SIDE 3.1 cartridges don't have a more recent version of the loader pre-installed at the point of sale. I rewrote the loader in the summer of 2022, and although this version was ready for release towards the end of that year, which is around about the time when SIDE 3.1 went into production. I didn't at the time have a licensing agreement in place with Lotharek for the newer version of the loader, which was acceptable to me, given the huge amount of new features present in the rewritten version and given the hundreds of hours of time invested in coding it. So since the firmware needed to be finalised before the hardware production run, Lotharek therefore went with the older loader, and we hashed out a suitable arrangements for the newer loader shortly thereafter. So that's why SIDE 3.1 is sold with the older loader, regardless of the fact that people like Peter D. Kaczorowski, he of the O2 Fixer, falsely claim that SIDE 3 stability issues are caused by regressions and or bugs in the newer versions of the loader. It's certainly true that newer versions of the loader, being larger, more powerful and feature-rich, much more heavily exploit DMA and cartridge ROM banking, and therefore are prone to more quickly revealing underlying stability issues with the hardware, should they exist on the host machine. I thought that when Peter started to collate older versions of the SIDE 3 loader and offer them for download, he's got them on Discord somewhere, I thought he was doing so as an aid to problem solving and troubleshooting in a sort of a philanthropic spirit, but it seems not, since he later advised people on Discord, after I assume he got annoyed by a video I made about a machine he'd worked on, to downgrade the loader to an earlier version because the latest version was full of bugs, or even deliberately crippled so that it wouldn't work with Rapidus.
I'm retarded?
Well, nothing could be further from the truth, of course. Were that the case, Lotharek wouldn't be using version 0.69 and up of the SIDE 3 loader for testing of the latest batch of SIDE 3.2 cartridges, including those with go-in chips instead of lattice chips, and then announcing to me that everything works once a hardware fault was fixed at his end. So clearly Lotharek, who's paying for the newer loader anyway, has no objections at all to selling the new batches of the SIDE 3 with the latest loader pre-installed. Ah, well, never mind. Everybody has their own way of looking busy and being involved and feeling good about themselves, so let's get this loader updated anyway. SIDE 3 Loader XEX, that's the one I know for a fact. So there we go. So what's this? Current loader 0.47, 270821. So that's what, two and a half years ago? 0.69 is 15th of March 2023. Alright then, so it's 18 months more recent than the one that's on there. So we'll try and update and hope it doesn't freeze. So as you'll see, the whole look and feel of the thing, there you go. So you've got more sort of a stronger branding, you see, because the logo in the corner echoes the loader on the cartridge itself and that sort of stuff. So all that stuff happened a year ago or more. Anyways, we've got the most recent loader now is right 0.69. Yeah, I might have done a maintenance release after that, but the fact that this one was sitting on my card suggests that this is the most recent one I've flashed to my own hardware. Now, if there was a real problem, this would have already crashed by now. So this is all very encouraging indeed. So we'll try a read-write test, because this loader as well, they're the major advancements in the newer version as compared to what was on the cartridges. This one can actually write to the FAT on the SD card. So we've got very slow write speed there. Now I think what you'll find that is it's looking for free space in the file allocation table. That's one of the terrible designs of FAT that is very un-8-bit friendly, is that the FAT32 does FAT32 does keep a hint for the free. That almost looks odd in the extreme to me. Very strange, but never mind. We'll ignore that. It just shows that the card works. Another thing we can try, which we should definitely try, is RWCRC, which is the hard disk integrity check written by Conrad Draco 30, which is a great tool. And until you've run that on your hard disk setup, you don't know it's stable. I mean, even if it passes, you don't know for 100% sure that it's free of faults, but it's a good indicator that the computer can at least communicate accurately and reliably with the storage media. So we'll run that as well. CRC, well, there it is. So we'll start that up. Now what this is going to do is write a large CRC checked set of data. I forget how big the file is. It's big. I think it's about 64 megabytes or something, or is it? I can't remember. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a big file full of CRC data, and then when it's written the file, it's going to read it back, and obviously because it's CRC data, it's able to check that it hasn't lost its integrity, i.e. the file's got no faults. So we'll let that run. Now if this runs and executes and completes without any errors, that is an absolute death knell for these two boards in this machine, because Rapidus is in, it's the original CPU, the original RAM, and SIDE3, and everything's working. After what we've got through with this machine, after the time I've spent on it, which is just preposterously huge at this point, I think that's a reasonable result. So I'll come back, we'll do some time lapse, and we'll see if this works. So that took a while, but it has passed with no errors. So we have error-free hard disk and SD card communication. Anyway, let's delete this folder. So if you press Ctrl and D, what's going on here? Ctrl and D. Ctrl and D. Oh, don't say the Control key's packed up. Oh God. Control. Nope, no Control key. Well, this keyboard's. Oh Jesus. Control and M should bring the menu up. Alright, so the Control key isn't working. Oh Christ. Oh, we better do a keyboard test. See what keys are working and what keys aren't working then. Oh God, this machine's just one thing after another. So we'll boot into basic and then we'll tab buy and we'll go to the keyboard self-test. Everything's still working apart from the Control key. Great. Okay, so I was getting ahead of myself there. Let's go into the self-test. The console key's working. Yes. I mean, I've replaced the flex cable on this keyboard completely, so it should all work. Alright, so there we go. So the console keys are working. That's good. So what, are we getting any control? No, we're not getting the Control key. Is shift working? Oh, for God's sake. Right, everything appears to work. Is the right shift working? Oh God! Unbelievable. Let's try another keyboard. But as luck would have it, my Daily Driver 600XL has the exact same connector on the keyboard, so we can test a different keyboard. I mean, I suppose it's possible that there's a break on the cable, which is shared by the Control keys and the Control key and the Shift keys, perhaps. Have we got Control keys here? Oh. No Control, no Shift on this other keyboard. Oh, let's go back to the other keyboard. So there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with the keyboard, so there must be something wrong with the motherboard, or what? Can't be PokeyMax surely. Let's take PokeyMax out and put a Pokey chip in the machine. So PokeyMax out, Pokey chip back in. Let's see if we've got a Control and Shift keys back. I don't see how it could be the PokeyMax. So now we've got Control keys and Shift keys. And this cost 105 quid. Oh God. I used to have another PokeyMax 2, but I've either given it, because I was sent a PokeyMax 3 subsequently, and that's the one that's in the 600XL. and I either gave away the PokeyMax 2 or I've got it in another machine. I don't know where the hell it is now. I suppose what I could do is test the PokeyMax 2 in the 600XL. Right, this poor 600XL gets pulled to pieces every 5 bloody minutes. The wiring harness for PokeyMax 3, which is this one here, it's got a lot more pins on it, is totally different to the one for PokeyMax 2. So I might still have, no, the address lines are in the new connector. So I'll just plug it in. It should still, the keyboard should still work without the extra address lines and stuff like that plugged in, I'm sure. So this is the customer's brand new PokeyMax 2 plugged into my 600XL, whose keyboard we know works. Right, okay, so basic. Well, I could have just tried typing some characters, couldn't I? Well, what the hell, we'll go in the keyboard self-test. Right, okay, so typing away, control. I don't know why the screen's jumping on here. No control, no shift. So the problem with the control key and the shift key is following the PokeyMax board from machine to machine. So it's the PokeyMax board. Now the funny thing is that this particular 600XL, before I put this PokeyMax 3 in it a year or so back, had a PokeyMax 2 in it with the exact same auto stereo Covox core flash to it that this board has, and it worked quite happily in this machine until it was removed and supplanted by the PokeyMax 3. So we've got a problem with the PokeyMax board. The shopping list for this 800XL, it included SRAM, it included the O2 Fixer, it included PokeyMax 2 and the AKI. Now we know the AKI doesn't currently work in the 800XL because it's NTSC. The PokeyMax now has a problem with the shift and the control keys. I mean, I'm not apportioning any blame here. It's kind of, well, to some extent, if the PokeyMax has a fault on it, that's probably just one of those things. But the accumulation of bad luck is just absolutely incredible. So let's take that board back out of here. Nothing that's gone in the Pokey socket on this computer has yet worked. So things in the Pokey socket we're not really having much luck with them in this computer, so there appears to be a fault on the PokeyMax board. We've also, as we've seen in the prior video, we couldn't get the older revision AKI board to work in this machine. The original firmware did work in this machine, but there are missing keys that make the thing more or less unusable, so I had two such boards and I upgraded them both with the fixed firmware that Candle provided. But unfortunately, it renders them entirely unoperational on an NTSC computer, and I was unable to roll back to the production firmware with the missing keys that came with the board, because we can't seem to locate it for some reason. I don't know why. So these older revision boards are entirely useless at the moment. Anyway, so Lotharek's package arrived, obviously, and I wasn't expecting it to arrive so quickly, so that's good. So this is the new revision of the AKI. Hot off the press. This one's got more flash RAM apparently, so I presume the flash chip has integral RAM. This has got more RAM on it. So this one is the one that's going to work with NTSC presumably. So I'm going to try it in the computer and see how we get on. Right, looks good so far. Okay, and here we go. We've got the light on the... Oh shit. Nothing. No keyboard input from USB. But the way to overcome these problems looks to me like to take all this shit out and just put the Pokey chip back in the Pokey socket as God intended, and everything will be fine. Internal keyboard works, but then we'd have a completely redundant USB connector on the back of the machine. So I'll get hold of this firmware update that I mentioned at the end of the last video that was on the cards. I probably wasn't sent it at the time because I didn't have any hardware to put it on. The firmware update for the new version of the board. So I'll go away and I'll try and catch Lotharek and see if I can get a copy of it, put it on the board, and then we'll try it out. Right, so it's a few hours have passed. I did manage to I tried to contact both Candle and Lotharek actually, but Lotharek got back to me, and there appears to have been a misunderstanding. Apparently thus far, there is no firmware fix for NTSC for this AKI board. Somehow I misconstrued the situation. I knew there was nothing yet for the old boards that would fix this NTSC issue, but the way that the new revision board was being talked about and rushed out to me in the post so that I could demonstrate it on the video, well, I was led to believe that the problem was fixed. Apparently, no, it hasn't been done yet. The fix does not exist. So now I've got two of these new boards, thinking that this would solve the problem. And I would have given one of these boards, I mean, I got them for free anyway. I would have given one of these boards to the customer in lieu of the original one that I bought on his behalf. But there still isn't a fix for this. Actually, Candle did send me a firmware update that he wanted me to try, and I did flash it, and it actually kills the board. I mean, not permanently kills it, but it bricks the board. Nothing runs. You get no num-block light or anything at all. So where I got the idea that this would be the end of the story, I just do not know. So he's got no AKI USB keyboard. He's got no PokeyMax at the moment because you can't use the internal keyboard because there's no shift and control keys. The only way that you can type on this machine is to take out the AKI and take out the PokeyMax and just put the Pokey chip back in the socket. I don't charge by the hour, and thank God I'm not keeping a tally of the time I've spent on here. Obviously I've had to spend time getting in touch with Foft about the PokeyMax thing, and the amount of time I've spent corresponding about this damn thing. I'd really like to get paid for this job, you know, sometime, because I've spent 650 odd quid on parts and spent getting on for 3 weeks working on this now. Right, so we're booting up Rapidus at 20 megahertz now. Let's go into the side setup menu, the Ultimate 1 megabyte setup menu. Right, so we've gone into the Ultimate 1 megabyte setup menu. And let's run the SIDE3 Loader. Is it going to work? Wow, it did. Let's try a recursive search. This should be alright. Most of the code for this loader runs out of ROM, so I don't think you're going to see a spectacular amount of speed improvement actually. So what we did to accomplish this feat of Rapidus and SIDE3 and Ultimate 1 megabyte and VBXE all working together reasonably well at 20 megahertz was to take away the O2 fixer and to take away the SRAM board. And the only amendment we've got to the motherboard itself, other than the presence of the upgrades themselves, is the replacement of 74 LS08 with 74 F08. Of course, I'm curious to see if our old reset problem's back, or is still with us rather. I don't. So the problem was that you'd be at the Sparta-DOS X prompt. I don't think it happened in 20 megahertz mode. But if we go into classic mode, we go back into classic mode, escape, save and exit. I'm assuming the machine's had time enough to warm up by now. The problem used to be that after a while, 5 or 10 minutes, when things had had a chance to warm up, that you'd press reset at the command prompt and the thing would, rather than just do a soft reset, a warm reset rather, it would actually cold boot. So see if that happens here. And it is still happening, of course. So that was the, for me, the most objectionable, one of the most objectionable quirks of the lot. But instead of using classic mode, the owner can actually, when I put the Rapidus plugin on the Ultimate 1 megabyte firmware, he can go in and in software totally deactivate the Rapidus, take it off the bus entirely, and I think that'll fix that problem. So you'd be able to run at 1.79 megahertz, press the reset key, everything will be okay. I think I can actually do that here. I think I might be able to take Rapidus off the bus here. So if we save that, so if I reboot now, I think Rapidus should be gone. It is, right, so I've turned Rapidus off, even without the plugin, I've turned Rapidus off by basically pulling the ground connection up to 5 volts. Okay, or 3.3 volts. I can't remember what it is. Logic 1 anyway. So now if I press the reset key, oh dear me. Yeah, you know what? That bug absolutely stinks. I thought I could get around it by just disabling Rapidus in software, but no. So if you press system reset in classic mode or with Rapidus actually turned off, the thing's going to reboot or hang, worse. But am I going to undertake to try and diagnose this after 5 or 6 years of experiencing this problem and initially being called a conspiracy theorist before everybody suddenly agreed that it was actually a problem? No, I don't think I am. The way to get rid of the unwanted cold reset problem is to take Rapidus out of the machine. Trying to work around it with all this bullshit. Rapidus, Ultimate 1MB, VBXE, all in the same machine. The hard disk works, we get reliable communication with the SD card. Do you think I'm going to undo all that by putting this back and starting again from scratch to try and stabilise the mess that we've already seen with these things in the system? No, I don't think so. The only problem I can see now is the same problem that has afflicted Rapidus when used alongside Ultimate 1MB for the past, how long? 7 or 8 years. Right, so Foft got back to me about this problematic PokeyMax here. He said the first thing he suggested was a pull-up resistor on the KR2 pin, which I believe is that one there at the front. KR2 handles the shift, control and brake keys on the Atari keyboard. So that's obvious, and since they are the keys that aren't working, this is the obvious place to look. So I tried that this morning and it didn't make any difference at all. Obviously, when I got this board straight from Retro Lemon, I wanted to change the firmware because this is the quad Pokey core, and I wanted to have the key click input on this pin here rather than A7, which I think is better for the owner as well. So that comes through the stereo mix. So I flashed the firmware now. So we're entertaining a couple of ideas here. Maybe the SC firmware that I flashed is a bit out of date, because this is very new firmware from March 2023. So maybe the SC firmware that I've put on this one, maybe it has an issue, I don't know. But the other thing he mentioned is this I/O expander chip in the corner here. Now, I'm really testing the capabilities of this camera here, but it's not very apparent on the camera here. But, in fact, it doesn't look too... there. So if we just catch it in the right light here, you see the second pin along just looks a bit dark, it looks a bit dry to me. And this is the chip, as I say, that actually, according to Foft, actually handles the keyboard. So I wonder if that's got a dry leg. I just wonder. Is that too much of a coincidence that that pin looks a bit off? I don't know. Shall we run along that with a little bit of flux and a soldering iron, perhaps? I'll have to get the magnifier on this, so I don't think I'm going to be able to film it. That pin doesn't look like it's got any solder on it at all. Oh, this is going to be a right pain. My eyes are getting worse. I think I'm going to deploy the stronger glasses, actually. We'll just deploy the stronger pound shop glasses and we'll see what we can do with this. Right, I had to do that off camera. Oh, what a handful. I think that is potentially better. Those pins all look the same colour to me now. Let's give it a try. I'm going to just clean the flux off the board, then we'll give it a shot. Right, so let's pop the PokeyMax back into the machine. Right, keyboard working, control working, shift working, fixed. Boom! Yes, right, there we go. So that's PokeyMax fixed. And excitement overload, I've actually got the AKI keyboard working as well this morning, so I'll show you that now. So as I mentioned when we fixed the PokeyMax board, we are now in receipt of firmware for the AKI, which actually works on NTSC machines. So quite a lot of things all happened on the same day or within the same few days. And of course this is the version 2 board. Lotharek sent me 2 of those. That one didn't work until the firmware had been updated as well. But then I was sent firmware for the original board. So I've put that one back in here. So initially what I had to do, of course, was put this board in the machine, flash the new firmware, verify that it worked. And this, of course, this will be a full featured version because it's got a bigger, it has more flash RAM, or RAM on the flash chip. Flash RAM doesn't seem to make much sense, but the flash chip has integral RAM, and this has got more of it. Which apparently the full fat firmware needs, the full featured firmware. So this can do some pretty interesting stuff, which I haven't been able to test yet. It might be nice to test it in a video, such as booting from a USB stick. So if you forego the keyboard functionality, because there's only one USB header on the board, apparently you can boot the machine from a USB stick with the full firmware. So I was all ready to give this to the customer, actually, if I have to leave this one on the board. But as I say, a day or two passed, and eventually we got some firmware for the older board, which also fixed the NTSC problem. In fact, I might be misremembering the discussion, because a few days have passed now and I'm filming this sort of retrospectively. It may be that the firmware that I flashed to this one was actually the firmware for this one, so it's compatible with both. So this flashed board is probably missing a few features at the moment. I can't remember. Obviously the boards will be sold with the fully corrected firmware on them in any case. So I've been able to put the original AKI board back into the machine. For those who are interested or who want to have a go, I'll flash it up on the screen, of course. This is the programmer that I used. It was from AliExpress. It only cost a few pounds, a couple of quid. It comes with this hideous 90s style micro USB cable. There's only 4 connections to make. You can program the board out of the system. I'll put the pin up on the screen if I can. I'm not one for diagrams. It's a little bit difficult because you can't put the JTAG header on the top of the board because it'll block the top of the underside of the Pokey chip. It wouldn't have been a problem here because of course there's a PokeyMax in it, but you can't rely on the fact that there's never going to be a Pokey sitting over the top of this connector. Could you put it on the back? Not really. So you have to poke the wires through the holes. I was almost on. I'd programmed this damn thing so many times. I was almost at the point of rigging up some sort of quick release jig for it, just because I got absolutely sick of poking these wires in these holes again and again and again on different boards. But anyway, everything came right in the end. So yeah, so you can get this cable. So if you've got an original and you don't mind running the cut down version of the fixed firmware, I can't see that anybody who owns an original white PCB AKI USB board wouldn't want to update the firmware. And hopefully the cut down version of the firmware that will go on these boards will actually be released for people who want to upgrade it like this. I don't see any reason why not. So I think it's time we did what we haven't been able to do prior to this point and actually demonstrate the AKI working. Of course you can have the internal keyboard connected at the same time, which was just rather essential, of course. Select the appropriate input on the monitor. Right, so I've booted the machine up. I've actually booted it up in 20 megahertz Rapidus accelerated mode as well, just to add a note of excitement to the video. So we've got the internal keyboard wired up, obviously, and that works, no problem at all. But we've got I've used a Logitech MX keys here. This is the one I usually use with the PC, but I've got a second one of these, which I bought at CEX the other week. Because it was on sale for 58 quid second hand, and it's in rather nice condition. This is the Mac version, but it's all 6 and 2/3s really. They're nice keyboards, so maybe it's reasonably modern. It might be the kind of keyboard that somebody might want to use with one of these things, so it seems to me to be a reasonable test. Other than that, I've got these which I quite like as well. which is the Logitech key. Is it a key 360? Yeah, they're nice keyboards, a bit more cheaply made than these ones. So we can type in, that seems to be working. We can delete. Now the problems I was having before, part of this was my own stupidity actually, I'm pretty sure, was certain keys not being accessible. There were definitely some that weren't there with the old firmware. But I got myself into a complete tiz-was this evening when I was talking to Candle, trying to find the clear screen and the insert character keystrokes. I'm just so used to things not working lately that I'm probably seeing problems where there aren't any. But in any case, so if we just type some characters here and we'll cursor back over them. Now if I press, I think that up here, oh no, well I've just found the clear screen character by mistake. So they're up here on this keyboard. It's a bit confusing. So this one here is the clear screen character, and yeah, so that's the clear screen character. So that would be the clear key on your Atari keyboard, and that one next to it is insert. So they're actually reversed in position, interestingly enough, because normally the clear key, the left hand wedge, so that one there. So this key here maps to that key on the Atari, and if we switch around, that key to its left maps to that key on the Atari. So that takes a little bit of getting used to, but it does work. So if we go back to the screen here, where you can see I've made a real mess. So if I type some stuff there, I can cursor back over it, and if I remember that the left, it's just counterintuitive having a left brace is insert there, and we can shift and insert lines, and the right hand brace is clear. Yeah, it's completely back to front in my opinion. The left hand one should be the clear key and the right hand one should be the insert key on the curly brace here. But alright then, so we can clear the screen like that, so we can do that. Now the inverse video key is page down. I don't know why, but that's what it is. So we can switch between reverse video and normal text. Now what's the other one that was a bit elusive? Ah yes, break. Break's one of the keys that we couldn't find before. So I suppose where you'd probably expect to find the break key would be on the pause break button commonly on keyboard. So this one here. Right, so I would imagine you'd probably expect to find the break key on this pause break key here, which doubles as the end key. So FN pause break would give you the break key with this keyboard. But this one here doesn't have one. Now on Altera, the emulator Altera, F7 doubles up as a break key for those keyboards that don't have a pause break key. Now this one hasn't got one, so this probably isn't the ideal keyboard to test this with. I never thought of that. So let's swap over to the key 360. So this, if we press FN pause break, that's not doing anything. It's making a clicking sound. The funny thing is, the break key on the actual what's that on the screen? The break key on the host system doesn't make a key click, obviously. Now this one is. But before I show you that, if you look there, the pause break key actually produced a 0. There we go. Oh, there we go, we got the pause break key producing zeros. Not break. So is there anything that produces a break key? So there's no break key anywhere on the keyboard at all, as far as I can tell. So that's a problem that needs to be fixed. I mean, auto repeat, what was page down for reverse video? Auto repeat nearly works perfectly. I seem to remember a problem with this before auto repeat, but I thought it was with the TK2 device and PokeyMax in the same machine where there was a bit of a problem. In fact, there's a thread on Atari Age, probably what I'm remembering here. I don't remember a conflict between AKI and PokeyMax. I mean, it's working reasonably well, but there is a post from a few years ago that Candle made on the Atari Age forum, which would tend to indicate that the two devices, the AKI and the PokeyMax, were totally incompatible. But as I think I've mentioned before, I'm guessing that got resolved on the PokeyMax side of things. There, and there, and there, and there, and there. So it's stuttery. Auto repeat is stuttery. Now, whether this is just a problem on NTSC or PAL, I don't know. I'd better go away and test that actually, because looks like I'm the beta tester for this AKI board now. But yeah, so I'll go and test that. So that's left a little bit in the open. So we've got no break key. Auto repeat is a bit iffy. I'll go into basic here because it's going to be a bit easier. Right. Now another thing which would be nice to have is the 1200 XL key mappings for the function keys, because they had handy things like cursor home and stuff like that. Now I'm told that they are present, so if we go Alt F1, right, we get a help screen here. Right, so we're zoomed in a little bit here because it's going to be more useful for you. So if we press Alt and F1, we get this help screen here dumped to the screen. Now there's a slight, I did speak to Candle earlier on about this. There's missing characters, as you can see. That it looks like it's all misspelled, but it'll actually come out different every time. So we've got, that should say press, it says PES. Arrow, it's only got one R. I mean, it was written by somebody who's Polish, but I mean, her English is pretty good, so I wouldn't have expected these errors. But they're not spelling errors, of course. They are actually the OS not being able to keep up with the rate of keys that are issued, because this screen is displayed obviously by inserting key codes into the keyboard input register. So we've got a little bit of a problem with the actual display of the help screen. I can't remember. I don't remember seeing that problem on a PAL machine actually, so that might be a timing issue to do with the key repeat or something. I don't know. But it gives you an indication of what we've got here. So the current configuration is arrow keys issue the math symbols, so you need to press Control obviously to get the arrows. Console key mapping KI. I can't remember what that. Oh, it's AKI. That should say AKI. So it's currently in the AKI proprietary console key mapping mode. So to change the arrow keys mode, press Alt and A. To change the F key mapping, press Alt and... oh, hang on. Let's try it again. Oh, Alt and F. And to save the configuration, press Alt and S. So let's try the other console key mapping. So if we do that, now we've got arrow keys on F1 to F4, just like on the 1200 XL. And we've got home, end, and home and end. So we've got home, top of the screen, bottom of the screen, home and end line, which is nice. And I think that's turned the keyboard off. So Control and F1 to turn the keyboard on and off. Because the XLXE OS supports all these withdrawn 1200 XL keystrokes as well. So that turns the keyboard on and off. That turns the screen on and off. Uh-oh. Supposed to turn it back on. Uh-oh. I think F8's now reset. Right, so that, I can turn the screen off, but I can't turn it back on. That turns the key click on and off. Control and F3. And Control and F4, I can't remember what the hell it does. So that's nice. I'm really missing the break key here. Well, I've got the break key on here, of course. So in the alternative F key mapping mode, you've got the other F1 to F4 keys as per the 1200 XL. Then you've got, oh shit, which one is help? There. So F10 becomes a help key in the alternative F key mapping mode. So then you got F10 plus F8. Alright, so I suppose, well, what we need here is a diagram telling us what keys are where, and we need the break key on the pause break key and on somewhere else. I guess F7 isn't going to work in the alternative key mapping mode, but we need a break key, and we need to be able to access the break key using a keyboard like this one that does not have the now completely deprecated pause break key. It's just gone from modern keyboards completely. And auto repeat is a little bit iffy. I have been in touch with Candle this evening. I did mention all these things, as I'm presuming I'm supposed to, since I'm the one testing this stuff apparently. The break key, the auto repeat, and the help text on the screen looking a bit iffy. The help text thing, that's going to be looked into. Break key, auto repeat, don't know, didn't get any kind of indication whether that's going to be looked at or not. I'm assuming those things will be fixed in the firmware before this goes on sale, the new board. If they're not fixed before the new board goes on sale, then I couldn't possibly recommend that you buy the thing, to be quite honest, because you're going to need the break key. I mean, this is just a demonstration. You're not going to have the external keyboard right in front of the main machine all the time. I mean, you might, but I would imagine quite a lot of people want to have this keyboard right over the other end of the room, rather than inches away from the front of the Atari, and having to resort to the original keyboard to press the break key. Anyway, we'll hold them to the idea that these things get fixed prior to the device going on sale. So that's the AKI keyboard. Anyway, I think I've covered it reasonably well, but we desperately need, when it's all done, a diagram, some documentation that you can quickly refer to tell you which bloody keys do what. So much for the AKI keyboard interface. I've made a few changes inside the machine again, just in one last ditch attempt to see if anything can affect the Rapidus reset issue. So we had the unwanted cold boot on reset in classic mode, and when Rapidus is entirely off the bus on this particular machine, it was hanging on a black screen. So what I've done is I've taken the DRAMs out of the board again. I've put the SRAM board back in the Rapidus CPU socket. I did even try an NCR CPU at some point. That made absolutely no difference whatsoever. But the SRAM board doesn't seem to do any harm, so I'll show you how it's working at the moment. So we're in what you might call legacy mode, I suppose, which is no Rapidus core loaded at all, no Rapidus classic mode, no Rapidus mode. This is just the 1.79 MHz 6502. So if we press the reset key here, it worked fine. That's no problem. If we press it again, it still works fine. If we press it a third time, it still works fine again. Now on the fourth time, in this particular instance, it's got stuck. And now I don't know why it's got stuck. I have no idea. One may even speculate that I don't even care at this point in the game why it gets stuck, but get stuck it does. I don't know what code the CPU is executing. You'd have to get a logic analyzer and hook the whole bus up and disassemble what's going on. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, this is about as good as I can get it. Now when it does get stuck, if you press the reset key again, it comes out of that state and it resets properly, so it doesn't cold boot. Now it'll even get stuck when I try to go into the ultimate setup menu, and if that happens I have to hold the help key down again and press reset a second time, and then I'm into the menu. There don't appear to be any other adverse effects from this, but that is just the way it works. Now it seemed to do that a lot more, almost all the time, with the original RAM in the machine. So I thought, well, we've bought an SRAM board as part of the consignment here, so why don't we put it back in the machine? Just in the hopes that that would make some sort of difference. So this is the state the machine's in now. Even for due diligence, I tried an NCR CPU. I tried a WDC6520 in place of this Cinetech PIA chip. So I even put the O2 Fixer back in the board and ran the ultimate 1 megabyte off the O2 signal that it provides to see if that would change the behavior of the machine. It didn't. I previously had this board in the computer in the first video, and I removed it to try and combat SIDE3 problems. So the SRAM's gone back in. Original RAM's come out, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with this one, because I started this computer on the 21st of January 2024. It's now the 20th of February, and I've had the machine off and on the desk intermittently during that entire calendar month. Now, as interesting as it might be from a technical perspective to try and address these reset related issues, I've seen nothing, including the O2 Fixer, that is capable of affecting that problem in any way, shape or form. And it looks like it's something that needs to be addressed in the Rapidus firmware itself, since it seems to concern ROM and RAM mapping. Now, the owner wanted me to do a guided tour of all the upgrades in the machine, sort of a quick starter guide, a how-to guide, but I think that's going to make this video far too long. I might do that separately, or might do that as a personal video for the owner, or as a patron video. I don't know yet, but I've spent an awful lot of time looking at this machine, working on it and talking about it, and I kind of just want to bring things to a close at this point, get the thing finished, finish the testing, get paid for the parts that I bought, and get paid for my time. So I'm reasonably happy with it. I'm very happy with the cosmetic condition of the machine. I think it's turned out very nicely. PokeyMax is working perfectly. Rapidus is working fine. We've still got a little bit of work to do on this AKI board. It's possible that by the time I actually edit this video, the firmware quirks will have been ironed out, and if they have, I'll include an extra segment in this video. Right, incredibly I find I'm shooting extra scenes for this video after the fact, when it's already been uploaded and published on Patreon, but I did promise that if there were any AKI firmware updates, which there have been, that I would include these in the video. Strictly speaking, I don't really have to, because it was too late and I've already published it, but it's not on general release yet, so I'm going to have to add these scenes, re-encode the video, re-upload it, delete the other one, move all the metadata across, and then republish it on Patreon before it goes on general release on Sunday night. Ah, well, the things I do, honestly, the things I do to put things in a positive light.
Oh God, why did you make me so nice?
But before we get on to that, you might be wondering what this is on the screen. This is a new error. Well, not a new error, I've seen it before, but new to this machine. Earlier on I put the SRAM board back in because I didn't think it did any harm, and I was trying to combat that hang situation where the reset key requires a double press to actually work. Well, the machine's now started to do this when it's turned on. I don't know if it was because it was turned on cold or what. Obviously when you start to swap bits in and out of the machine, you're doing it while it's already reached operating temperature. So maybe I got a bit misled by that, so I'm gonna take the, I mean, there's no cartridge there. It doesn't matter whether this cartridge is inserted or not, it just does that. I had previously taken the SRAM board out and put the RAM back in before I turned the camera on, but I put it back in just to see if it would actually still do that with the RAM in the machine, and it does. So I don't think we can have that. I think that's actually worse than the problems we've already got. So I'm just gonna take that out, put the CPU straight in the Rapidus, and then I'm going to turn it on and see what it does. Oh. Right, so it boots. Looks like it boots fine. So, sorry, SRAM's out, O2 Fixer's out. Providing this is acceptable, this is how it's going to go back to the owner, because I have just had it up to here with this fucking computer. I noticed the O2 Fixer designer has I think he's made a video of trying to replicate the old reset issue. This whole Rapidus reset issue is becoming a bit of a moot point, actually, especially considering it is a relatively minor, albeit reproducible and endemic problem that's existed since the device first went on sale. And it's been discussed ad nauseum for years. The designer of the O2 fixer seems focused on that specific issue now, particularly in the wake of two separate machines on my desk here, one of which was actually put together by him, which didn't exhibit any quantifiable O2 stability improvements with the O2 fixer installed. So if timing glitches with SIDE3 and Rapidus can be addressed satisfactorily with a $2 chip, which certainly seems to be the case here and has been the case in my experience, the question then becomes, why do I need the O2 fixer? And the insinuation now seems to be that it'll fix the reset issue, but only on some XLs and on XE machines, since we can already see here that it doesn't fix the reset issue on these two XL machines. I'm far more concerned by customers being encouraged to spend money on add-ons that they don't need or which simply don't work than I am by any unresolved quirks with the Rapidus hardware. Fortunately, I've got 3 Rapidus boards at the moment and 3 O2 fixer boards, so I can easily test these in an Ultimate 1MB equipped XE to substantiate or debunk any claims that issues can be determinately fixed by spending another 40 quid on the O2 fixer and the SRAM board over and above the £160 already shelled out on Rapidus. Okay, so having removed the SRAM board and put the original RAM back in the machine again, I've left the machine overnight, so it's absolutely stone cold, and I've come back to it on Sunday just to be absolutely sure that we've got rid of this cartridge change detected error that I started to encounter, and we're going to test it now to see if we get that error again, because this was happening every time the machine was turned on after having been left off for a prolonged period of time. So this is in 20 megahertz mode, and it seems to have alleviated that problem. Anyway, so let's have a look. So what we had before, earlier in the video, was we had no break key, and in fact when you pressed the pause break key on the USB keyboard, we were actually getting zeros and right braces sometimes, which was very strange, and it was generating a key click. So there's obviously something seriously wrong. So now if we press FN pause break on this particular keyboard, because it's one of those keyboards where you've got a modifier key, like a function modifier, but it does still have that pause break key on the board. So now if we press that, we actually get the break key. Now one thing I didn't notice at first, but it's more apparent in basic. So if we go into basic here, and let's press the break key again. So what I noticed after the fact, or I sort of announced that to Candle that things seem to work, we seem to be getting multiple break IRQs here. It wasn't so apparent in the Sparta-DOS X command processor, because of course the first time the break IRQ is triggered in DOS, so we go back there, so when the break IRQ is triggered, DOS actually prints that error message. And what seems to be happening is, while that error message is being displayed on the screen, we're getting additional IRQ, break IRQs being triggered somehow. So it seems to be like a debounce problem or something, because if you press it really, if we go to basic again, so when we press the break key on the internal keyboard, we just get one line. It scrolls up the screen by one line, which is obviously going to be very useful. Imagine if you're listing a basic program and you get to the point where you want to stop the listing and jump in. You don't want the whole lot scrolling off the top of the screen. But when we press the one on the USB keyboard here, we get at least a couple of lines scrolled, depending on how quick you are with the keyboard. With the internal keyboard, you can just hold the break key down and you'll only get one break. Likewise, if you go back to DOS, what we should be getting here is one blank line, error message, another blank line, and then the command prompt again, which we get every time with the internal keyboard. But here, of course, we get, at the very least, we get 2 blank lines. So that I've fed that back to Candle, and I think that's going to require quite a lot of work. Apparently the whole KR2, because these the break key, the shift key and the control key all go through the KR2 line on the Pokey chip. So I think something was mentioned about actually having a separate state machine for those 3 keys. So that's where we are with that, but at least we do have a break key. Now the other problems that I'd mentioned previously were things like auto repeat. Now auto repeat seems to be... well, that's funny. I was going to say auto repeat seems to be okay now, but it's very intermittent. It seems to depend on the phase of the moon, the temperature of the room or whatever. Sometimes auto repeat works absolutely fine, as it seems to here. But other times it'll stutter. There, it stuttered there, it stuttered there. So it's very strange, it's very intermittent. So auto repeat still isn't quite there. I don't know if this is an NTSC only problem, or if it's the same on PAL, but auto repeat still isn't there. Now, as I say, I'm not nitpicking here. I've been charged with the task of testing these boards, either because other people haven't got time, or they haven't got the machines, or their lives are in a perpetual state of crisis. I've got loads of boards here. I've got the cable for flashing the firmware, so I've got the machines on the desk, so okay, fair enough, I'll test them. But obviously I need to feed back everything that I see, because if it doesn't get sorted out, the person's going to buy the board, and the customer's going to look at this and think, oh, I'm going to cursor across the screen here. And of course, if it stutters, he's going to think, well, what's wrong with the board? So it makes sense to sort it out now. So that was the other thing. So we've got the break key now, which kind of works, but it seems to be issuing multiple IRQs. I could pull the oscilloscope out, put it on the break, or put it on the IRQ line, and you will see several IRQs being triggered by the break key for one press. Now the other thing, of course, which I showed you before, is the help screen, and I think we had a bit of corruption on the help screen, so you press Alt and F1 for that. So as you can see, we've still got a bit of corruption on the screen here. This screen is displayed by simply feeding keystrokes into the keyboard input register. So I think it's some sort of timing issue. I don't know, I'm not the one doing this. I don't have an intimate understanding of the USB keyboard protocols. And it's different every time, so if you press it again, it looks a bit better so far. One thing I have noticed here is that some of the lines are terminated with a carriage return, and some of them just have an enormous amount of space padding over on the right hand side. I don't know why that is. It seems to be a bit inconsistent, and it would display a lot quicker. So if we do it again, so that one, carriage return, all this space here, and then carriage return. I don't know why some of them seem to be padded out with spaces on the right hand side. If we got rid of that white space and just ended the line with the carriage return, it would display quicker. Another thing you might notice is that every time we display this help text, the case of the text changes, it reverses. So one time it's in lowercase with a capitalization, and then the next time it'll all be in uppercase. So what I think's happening here, because the first time you display the screen, after just turning the machine on, when the operating system handles the upper lower case of the keyboard with a flag, controlled by the caps key, of course. So what I think's being done here, I haven't actually talked to Candle about it and confirmed it, but I'm assuming what it does is it issues a caps keystroke designed to knock the keyboard into lower case, so to set the operating system keyboard case flag to lower case. And that allows it to display the keystrokes in lower case. And I'm assuming that's what it does, and it does that once at the top of the screen, on the assumption that the keyboard was probably in upper case, and it leaves the keyboard in lower case. So the next time we display the screen, the keyboard is in lower case, and it issues the caps keystroke at the top of the screen, thereby putting the keyboard into upper case prior to the next time the help text is displayed. I mean, I can probably verify this. So it's in uppercase, yes. And now if we press Alt and F1 again, right, and if we press break, is the keyboard in lower? Yeah, the keyboard's in lowercase. So yeah, I'm right. The first thing that this help screen does is issue the caps command to put the keyboard into lowercase, but it actually leaves it in lowercase, so that the next time you display the help screen, it actually puts the keyboard in uppercase. What I've suggested, actually, to get around this, because the problem seems to me to be that the AKI doesn't know, it can't possibly know determinately what case the keyboard is currently in when it displays the help screen, because obviously this is much more readable if it's in lower case. There is a way to put the keyboard into a known state, because the Atari has what they call shift lock, which is supported by the operating system, and you get shift lock by pressing shift and caps. So currently we're in lower case. If I press shift and caps, we should be in uppercase, and if I press shift and caps again, we should still be in uppercase. So if you issue the shift and caps key code, that puts the keyboard into uppercase. So, but having done that, if you press caps again, you're going to be in lowercase. So if you want to get the keyboard via software, so to speak, without any access to the operating system flags, if you want to put the keyboard in lowercase and know that it's in lowercase, if you issue shift and caps followed by caps, that'll put the keyboard into lowercase. And of course these are just presentation things at the end of the day, but then again, I would have thought that's one of the fun parts of writing any kind of software, is that when the thing basically works, then you begin to smarten it up and make it look nice. So I'm going to ask about this white space padding over on the right hand side here, because I don't know why that happens, and then other lines are terminated just with return. I don't know. Anyway, I can only make recommendations. Whether or not they're followed up or not, I don't know. So I really hope the owner is happy with the machine that he's going to receive. It's certainly had a lot of work put into it. A lot of issues have been overcome, and I think he's going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Likewise, I hope you've enjoyed watching this machine being put together. I want to really thank again the video sponsor, the patrons. Thank you very, very much indeed from the bottom of my heart for your continued support. It is hugely appreciated. All the patrons will see their names on the screen. And if you don't already know, patrons get early access to all videos, usually 2 or 3 days ahead, and you can get to watch them without any ads, no Google ads whatsoever, before they go on general release. So if that interests you, please visit the links below the video. So that being said, I'll bring this one to a close. Hopefully the machine's owner will be among those who really enjoy watching this video. So thanks again for watching, and all being well, I will see you in the next video. So goodbye for now.